What is going on, Busy Bariatrics? I'm Rob, your favorite VSG man turned bariatric coach, here to help you stop white knuckling your way through chicken, broccoli, and diet air meal plans. Ditch the burn boot camps that leave you sweaty but all stuck, and finally fix the habits, patterns, and behaviors that got you here in the first place. Let's get gritty, let's get honest, and let's get busy. In this episode, please screenshot it, tag me at My Weight is History, and tag Abby as well, especially if you've ever tried to juggle a high stakes job, travel while parenting, and a body comp goal all at once. Today, I am so excited. I'm going to have one of my favorite clients on. Miss Abby Coffin is a demanding executive who works a very important job in higher ed. She's the assistant vice provost for academic success at the University of Kansas. She's also a mom of two. She has one in college, one playing travel ball. Did I get it right? Yep, she's giving me the nod, so I'm good. And we're going to be talking about how she manages her high stakes job, traveling to see her kids, dinners, and decision fatigue that used to wreck her nutrition. And now she's crushing her goals, lifting heavier, and thriving in her schedule without fixating on the scale or sleep data, even though we know it's both important. Abby, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I know, like full intro there. For people who don't know who you are, can you just share who you are, what life looked like before joining Busy Bariatrics, and what made you realize something had to shift?
Sure. Well, I had gastric bypass in May of 2024 and was just kind of like going through the steps from my surgery center for probably 10 months or so. But I had sort of stalled after like 6 or 7 months and had been doing all the things I was told to do and all the things I sort of knew from prior attempts at weight loss and macro coaching to do, but I just wasn't really getting anywhere. And so I had been a listener of your podcast and followed you on social media. And so I thought, well, I don't really have anything to lose. I'll just reach out and see if I would benefit from joining Busy Bariatrics, and took one quick phone call with you and decided to join, and decided that accountability was just what I was looking for. And I've been doing this for, I think, maybe 3 months now.
Yeah, and it's been really fun because I think you represent a lot of what typical bariatric patients have around that 10-month mark is I'm doing all the right things. I have a wealth of information, but how do I sort through what do I need to do? What do I not need to do? What can I kind of focus my attention on and kind of move from there? When we look at all that, what were some of the biggest struggles you had between trying to balance work dinners, travel ball weekends, and your own nutrition as we got started?
I think probably two main struggles. One, I am a perfectionist, and so I try to do everything right. And there's often things that are conflicting, or, if someone says, here's the thing you should do, I take it like full serious. Like I should do that to 100%. I'd get really frustrated with myself if I couldn't, or if life made it more difficult. And so I would sort of like set that aside altogether. Sort of suffered from that all or nothing thinking. But then I think sort of the other thing I was struggling with is just I do have a lot to manage. I have to really make my minutes count. And so it kind of brings up that all or nothing thinking again. I can sort of think, okay, if I have the perfect week where everything goes exactly as planned, then I can achieve the perfect results. But most weeks are not perfect and most weeks need adjustments. And I would think of those as like off weeks instead of just that's my life. Every week is going to require those things. So that's kind of where I was getting stuck.
I think that was probably one of the most fun things when we really started to look at like calendar and lifestyle was this idea of like, okay, like life is going to continue to happen. You're going to have to show up for your job. You have two amazing daughters that you show up for consistently and love spending time with, as well as like a social life where you're traveling with your sister. You're doing all the amazing things you want to do. And I think dichotomy is something that happens to a lot of bariatric patients, especially at month 10, because they're not necessarily losing weight right away. It's almost like, well, if I'm not going to have a 5 pound weight loss every week, why should I do the work? How did you start to dial in your calendar or break out of that dichotomous thinking?
I think with my calendar specifically, it was really drilling out and looking at it. I'm really good at looking at the granular. Like I start every day. I know exactly what I need to achieve. I know where I'm going to be, what meetings I have to do, like what our, activities are and those kinds of things. And so for me, drilling out and looking at, well, over this week, where are things going to fit? Like where's your things that are going to make you go off plan versus like how are you going to accomplish your nutritional goals. So drilling out, I think, was sort of the main thing I needed to do to be successful, because otherwise I would get stuck in the minutia, and it's like, I guess it almost paralyzed me in a way where I sort of like, I just put the brakes on all of it. Well, I simply don't know where these things are going to come from on Thursday. So therefore, I can't do it on the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday leading up to it, and the Friday, Saturday, Sunday afterwards. I sort of like let myself off the hook because it wasn't perfect. And so when you look at it a week at a time, or certainly a month at a time, and I sort of aspire to get to the place where you are, where you're looking at it 6 months out of a time, it kind of takes the pressure off a little bit, that you are going to have days that aren't perfect, but that you also still have to keep showing up in that consistent way, or you're going to be a month down the road and you have absolutely no progress to show for it because you're fixated on the minute to minute or the day by day.
100%. And I think that's so common when we work with patients, is this idea of we have to almost like, and I love the word granular, because it's almost like we have to like stop worrying about every little grain of sand on the beach, but look at like, how are we going to get across the entire beach? And that's something that I think happens to a lot of people, especially when they have high-end jobs like yourselves, is you have to make hundreds of decisions a day that have major ramifications, consequences. As a parent as well, there's so many other aspects that you have to make decisions on, that when it finally comes time for ourselves, we really do almost shut down, because it's like, I'm on like decision 200 of the day. There's no more. How did like you start to attack like pulling back and looking at like a daily or a weekly approach when it came to nutrition?
Well, I let myself use an excuse that I don't like leftovers. And that was true pre-surgery and is still true now. And as someone who can't eat very much at a time, that stinks to not like leftovers, but I just don't. And I let that become an excuse that prevented me from planning well and executing my plan well. And I'm never going to make dinner one night and have those leftovers for lunch the next day, but I absolutely can make decisions about the lunch I do want to have every week. And it can, I do a week at a time. And that doesn't have to taste like leftovers. Like right now, I'm in like a canned chicken and chopped salad mix because it's super easy and I don't have to think about it. It just, goes right into my lunchbox. And that doesn't feel like a leftover to me because it's being prepared fresh. So I just sort of had to, I guess, again, untangle my thoughts around what perfection looked like, or like what other people on social media do. They order something or they make something and they portion it out into 7 little containers, and that works great for them, but it doesn't work great for me. So I had to figure out what's a repeatable breakfast I can make fresh every single day. What's a repeatable lunch I can make fresh every single day. And I just do those so then I don't have to think about them. And then I do make a fresh dinner every night. And I just know I won't eat leftovers. And so if we have leftovers, my family will eat them. I will not. And I just have committed I'm going to choose 5 things that I'm going to make throughout the week because I know that it's got to be fresh or I'm not going to eat it.
I always laugh at that, because I think we all see the same posts on Instagram where it's like, okay, first off, it's glass containers, which I'm thrilled to death and amazed of. You can keep the lids, you can keep them organized, they don't stack. So I know they're taking up a lot of room when you're not doing like 21 glass containers per week plus snacks. But I think that's something that most people don't understand, is this idea of it doesn't necessarily have to be leftovers the next day, but it can be something simply repeatable that feels fresh. Something like canned chicken over a bed of lettuce and kind of working from there. But the other cool part is kind of just looking at it as you do not have to be perfect throughout everything. So we always talk in our coaching of you don't necessarily have to win every battle, you just have to win the war. Can you think of some examples of what we've kind of worked through to kind of reflect that?
Yeah, again, this feels very simple, and after you and I talked about it, I sort of was like, how did that not occur to me? But I've always been really good about making sure I have snacks with me. Like if I'm someplace and I'm find, it takes longer than expected and I find myself without food, um, I'm good about taking like beef sticks or protein bars or protein shakes, like whatever quick, easy to grab thing. But for some reason, it just simply had not occurred to me that those very meals that I take in a lunch bag to work every day, I could take with me as I'm running errands. And so that helped me get out of the pattern again of like, oh, well, I couldn't I was going to be home to have this nutritious prepared lunch, but I didn't make it home. So therefore, I ate this thing that doesn't support my goals. And so again, it just kind of helped me untangle this idea of it has to be perfect and it has to go according to what your planner says it's going to go. And you can just simply take those things with you and make it work. And that's great. Or you can decide, this opportunity for social time came up and I want that social time. So I am going to eat at a restaurant and not, use the thing that I brought with me, but I can do it with those same goals in mind. Like I can choose things that'll still support those goals.
I think something that I know from hiring coaches myself, as well as helping tons of other bariatric patients, sometimes we think that the answer has to be this really complex or fully systematized thing, where in reality, it's how do we make this simpler and how do we make it more efficient so that we do that? And you've really shown like kind of how to manage all that, as well as how to pivot with, hey, we're all going out as a family. Like, this is where we're moving here, which means like, okay, if this is the Wednesday meal, then maybe Friday doesn't have to be pizza night. It could be something as simple as like, we're just going to eat at home or do something simpler. When you look at your whole schedule, like fitness does play a big part of it, and you have a home gym. What were some of the reasons of why you chose a home gym, and how is that going for you?
I chose a home gym during COVID. I had worked out like more fitness classes more than anything prior to COVID. It was one of the things or something my friends and I would go do together. And then when COVID happened, the gym that I was working with went to online, kind of like boot camp style classes, and I needed some basic equipment to make that work to be able to do it there. Realized that I actually really like working out at home. I used to have to try to really flex my schedule to figure out where it could fit, because especially if you work out at a gym that has classes, it's like you have to be there at this specific time. They don't care that you have a meeting, that's the time that class is. And so it let me figure out how to really use my time better. I also, prior to COVID, was I guess a workaholic, honestly. So I would work really early in the morning. I would work through lunch. I would work until the evening. And so I had a really hard time like showing up and prioritizing me. And COVID was good for me in that way. I learned how to prioritize myself during the day. And so part of that, just my pattern became to work at home. And so I liked getting equipment and getting like a little more than I had, the 6 months before, the year before, so that I could do whatever it is I wanted to do. I could still do it at home. And so I've built a pretty nice home gym because of it. And I continue to really love to work out at home because I can do it whenever my minutes will allow for me to do it. And it doesn't have to be something that I like say 12 hours in advance. Like I can look at my calendar every morning to figure out what's happening during the day. And I can look and say, well, I know where my lift's going to fit. And if that is a day I happen to be working remotely and I can do it over lunch, that's great. And if I don't get it done, then I know I just got to get it done in the evening. So it lets me just be as flexible as possible. And the thing I miss, I guess, is the social element. And so that's the part that right now I'm trying to figure out is I have learned to be very disciplined and accountable to showing up and getting the work done at home, but it isn't as fun to work out alone. And so now I'm thinking about what fun workouts look like that I can like choose a class or I can choose something that my friends want to do and we can connect socially while also, of course, like, complementing the goals that each of us have.
And I think the best part of everything you said is there's clearly a prioritization that's going on of what's the most important thing. And for you at this stage in your life, it's I need to make sure that I'm doing it consistently. So working out consistently from home was the best answer for you. You understand that like that is more important right now than the social aspect, but that like incorporating fun classes is a great way to connect with friends and work with everything. I will say though, from my previous experience from being heavy, I was the king of signing up for group fitness classes and knowing they would lock the doors at certain times and then conveniently show up in that window where it's like, oh, maybe it's not my fault that I missed this class, like that it was locked. But I do think it's important because for many people, a set time every day does not necessarily fit their routine, but this allows you to kind of flow through and get that. How has working with Lisa or checking your form or checking your progressions helped you grow and develop in the gym?
I think it's helped a lot. There was a I think there were a few things that I was quite certain. In fact, from working with previous fitness coaches, I was quite certain I was doing correct and sort of like scoffed at the idea that I needed to do a form check because I thought, no, no, I've done a form check with other people. I know I'm good. And as it turns out, I'm not good. And so I needed to make modifications on that front. So I think it's helped me to be more precise in my movements. I think also the approach that you all use, and I worked with Lisa on in terms of the way that you all progress, has let me not be lazy because sometimes there are lifts that I just don't enjoy as much as others, or frankly, I'm like, this is going to be really hard. And I have already had a hard day. And so maybe I don't want to lift that heavy. And so I'd sort of like coast through a progression, but the way that you all design progressions, it doesn't, and look at the feedback related to progressions, it doesn't let you be lazy. Or Lisa will reply and say, like, are you ready to go up on this? And in my head, I'm like, no, I'm not ready to go up. That's why I didn't do it. So I have to be accountable for the choice that I made that I didn't progress and why I didn't progress. So I think those have been the best things for me because I can lift heavier than maybe I want to. And I probably know that, but it's so easy when you work out at home, especially totally alone. There's no competition. It's really easy to be like, I did this amount last time. I'm sure that'll be fine to do it again. And you're not going to get better if that's the case. So it's been an important way, I think, of getting and giving feedback for someone who works out alone to be able to keep pushing themselves.
I will say it's always my funnest part because Lisa trained under me and she was someone who I always joke like I almost created a monster because I kind of knew how to poke and prod. But it also was because Lisa knew that she was playing it safe. And sometimes just having someone check in and be like, hey, are you ready to move up? And not in the sense of like you need to wave a finger at someone, but more of like, let's talk about why the progressions happen really plays a role. And looking over your data, like Lisa's always so proud to mention that you're lifting heavier now and that your body comp is coming in so well. What feels different about how you look and feel since starting to lift weights, progress heavier, and put it all together?
I I'm just starting to see some physical changes. When I go back and look at those form videos, I notice muscle that I guess I just don't see in my everyday life. And so I like looking at those because I can see that muscle. And so that feels different. But honestly, I think there's a bit of a confidence I think that comes from lifting specifically. And I think in women who are, I'm in my 40s, and I think women, especially in their 40s, are often wrestling with less muscle than they had in the decade prior. And I was just talking with a friend at softball over the weekend, actually, and she's really struggling with needing to be accountable for her nutrition for the first time ever in her life. And she's doing something that felt so familiar to me. Like she's doing all the things. I'm a person that does all the things. If there's a problem to solve, like in my job, in my life, anywhere, I just do everything. If someone says you should do it, I do it. And so she's doing all the things. She's in a calorie deficit and she's eating every health food that she feels like exists that some, company has told her she should eat. She's walking and running a ton, but she's not lifting weights. And so I was talking to her about how that has made such a difference for me and that I have so much like physical confidence because of my shape, I guess. Like I have muscles where I want to have muscles, but I also have confidence that I don't have to question what to do with my nutrition because I know what it takes to fuel my workouts. And I know that my workouts are helping me maintain the muscle that I have. And so I don't have to constantly be guessing, like, well, maybe I'm eating too much or maybe I'm not eating enough. And she's just stuck in that spiral right now. And it made me realize how good it feels to not be stuck in that place. And I think for someone who struggled with their weight for so long to the point that they had a very invasive life change, like had a surgery, to be confident on the other side of it that you don't have to be stuck in that spiral. That's pretty life changing, honestly.
I always say like the first step is bariatric surgery of life changing, because when you've lived in diet culture and we're close to the same age, so we both have that experience of, if you've lived with that for a while, you eventually are like, yeah, I'll have 80% of my stomach removed if this makes it stop. And you're willing to do that. And then to have someone be able to say, like, look, we're going to put it all together for you and craft a perfect vision. And you were always really good with saying, like, okay, here's the plan. And I almost like would hesitate with working with you, because I could never always tell you're okay when I'd first be like, here's what I think we should do. And even when you came in for your discovery call, it was one of those like, okay. And I was like, so does that sound good? And you're like, yeah, we're all in. And that's kind of how you've attacked everything, is you try it until it doesn't work. And it's been cool to see that through your progression. And you also like to bring data to the table. One of the bigger things we talked about was sleep and the importance of sleep. What was one of the data revelations that we kind of had from working together?
Yeah, I hyperfixated on my sleep for a while, and it probably is because I got a new tracking device that was timed at right about the same time I started working with you. And I first realized that I always thought I was a good sleeper and I got a ton of sleep. And then all of a sudden, I had all this data that told me otherwise. And so I was immediately fixating on sleep and sleep quality and what I needed to do to sleep more. And I think as I'm getting older, I'm realizing that sleep affects a lot of things that it did not affect in my 20s. And so I feel like the physical aspects of that as well. And I'm a person that if you tell me to do something, I do it. And so if you told me to work out today, it wouldn't matter whether I slept good or not. I would just simply go work out because you told me to do it. So I let myself get pretty fixated on the idea that last night's score meant something really monumental about today. And so I would let it influence whether I worked out, how hard I worked out. Like I was sort of shifting my lifts around in a way that didn't work for my schedule and then having a harder time getting them done, all because I was really fixated on sleep. And again, you helped me to drill back out and quit operating in this like really granular space, and think more about what's happening a week at a time or a month at a time or even longer than that. Eventually, of course, like a sleep debt is going to, and you're going to have to figure out how to deal with it. But me not sleeping well one night doesn't mean I can't lift the next day. If I feel bad, I should listen to my body, but I should still show up and do the things I need to do. And like this little ring score, it's just simply a number. And I just kind of like needed a reminder that it's just a number.
I think I have to too at different points in my bariatric journey. And this is even after bariatric surgery. If the scale went up or down, I would almost freak out and change my entire plan. And it took a coach to just say, look, pull it back and let's see what the week data looks like and then what looks like a monthly data plan. And I think sometimes it goes back to like from the coaching standpoint of make it more simple, of like just track the data, look at it once a month and then kind of see how it's going. It's cool to watch you develop of that, because I've seen plenty of people say like, oh, I had a poor sleep score, so today is going to be a rest day and I'm going to shut down my workout. And if you're a mom of two and you're working a high end job and you have other commitments, if we went solely by when we got good night's sleep, we probably wouldn't work out that often. Just like we probably couldn't create a caloric deficit if we didn't maintain the caloric deficit by going by what the scale says that day. But the cool part is you've really done a great job of pulling back the data and almost looking at like, okay, here's how we manage it. And a cool thing that I saw from even a lifestyle perspective was when you went on a trip with your sister. Can you kind of say how we mapped out eating at Mark and the plan we put through?
Yeah. My first reaction, it was just a road trip kind of trip. So we were on the road a lot. So it would take, a long time to get to the destination. That was sort of like part of the fun. It was going to a place that we'd been before. So we knew there was like fun places we wanted to eat. And so my first sort of thought before I talked to you was that I should just like say, who cares for the next 4 or 5 days? And I can just do whatever I want and not track anything. And I was sort of waffling between that like throw everything to the wind. It doesn't matter what your approach has been, these previous 10 or 11 months, but just do whatever you want for the next 4 days. But there is a little like voice in my head that it's like, that's a bad idea. Any other time in your life that you've done that, it's really hard to come back from. And so then I thought, like, ahead of my coaching call with you, I was thinking, no, just like muscle your way through it. Like, you can live on grilled chicken and, pack tuna packets or whatever, and just like get through the trip. And who cares about the food? And you helped me see that really there was something in the middle there that would benefit me the most. And there certainly were meals that were really easy to control. And, I could pack some things ahead for breakfast that would let me feel satisfied and not constantly be hungry and constantly searching for snacks. And then it wouldn't like take out any of the joy of the trip. But there were certain times where we should stop and we should splurge and we should have fun, and that there was room to do all of that. And so we did all of that, and it was really fun. And I was up a little bit on the scale, not a lot, like a pound or something, but I felt
One
really,
pound, just for everyone else listening, that's a fluctuation, people. Like if you could come back, because I do want to pause a little bit and we'll go back into it. How many vacations did you take prior to bariatric surgery or even after bariatric surgery where the scale fluctuated more than that and you spent the entire time worried about your food?
yeah, a lot, all of them, honestly. Or I would like not get on the scale for 2 weeks because I just knew what it was going to say. So I would pretend like the scale didn't exist so I didn't have to deal with that problem.
It's so true. And I'm beaming on the other side of this recording just because it was like the perfect combination of we didn't get like we pulled Abby back from the granular and was like, let's look at the whole weekend. And this is a great technique, I think, for everyone else. If you're listening to this, of how you can kind of map out travel vacations and weekends, is we got out of the dichotomous thinking of like, okay, we're 10 months post-op. We need to eat, that chicken, broccoli, and can of diet air at every meal. And it needs to only be about the experience and everything else. And it's just, I don't believe that. Like, life is lifing, and it was good. And we sat down and said, okay, how many days are you out? And you gave the map out of, I think it was like Thursday to Sunday.
Yeah, I left Wednesday night. So yeah, pretty much Thursday to Sunday.
Perfect. But we just mapped out like, okay, how many meals do we have? And then what was the most important meal? And it was so fun because it was a recent one-to-one call. Your eyes like beamed up. You were like, there's a place we go for breakfast. And I was like, bingo, that's exactly what we need to circle around and get to that. So I was like, that's the non-negotiable. That meal has to be on. And we worked around that and worked backwards and realized like, this meal's kind of good, but like I can pass. This is like a Chick-fil-A stop where like I can get Chick-fil-A whenever I want, but this breakfast meal is more important. And we built out this whole plan of like how we're going to navigate everything. We kind of bullied your sister into cooking healthier meals for everything. If she's listening, just thank you. You helped Abby, and we had an amazing weekend from it. But kind of tell me, like, by the time we got to Sunday, like, how did the meal go?
Well, it was a little anticlimactic, honestly, because it wasn't quite as good as I had remembered going prior to surgery. But I think it also is because I sort of you helped me to take the pressure off of it. I think if I would have gone in with my original plan of like, who cares? It's a vacation, do whatever you want, I maybe would have, again, like really built it up or possibly felt really disappointed. I'm not sure, but I think I would have had like a high or a low emotion around it. And at the end of the day, it's a really good breakfast place and we had a lot of fun. But part of what makes it a good breakfast place is its atmosphere is really good and the food was great. It was just as great as I remember, but it wasn't like this something I'm going to talk about for a year because it's just a breakfast place, but we had a lot of fun. We had all the social elements of it. It's like a very old fashioned diner sort of place. And so like the people watching is good regardless of what you're eating and how, well that fits into your nutritional plan. And so we got to do like all the things about it that I loved so much. And it sort of took the pressure of the food off the table. And the food is great. I'm glad I ate it. I don't need to have that again. Like I'm not like craving it, It was just like that was an event and now the event's over. Great.
I think it was funny because so many people think like their coach is going to tell them like you need to track every macro while you're in there. You need to bring like a meal prep container with you. And I just don't think that's sustainable for life. But that map out plan worked well. I think the only thing I told you to track was like, I want a picture of the cinnamon roll you talked about. And lo and behold, like Sunday morning, I'm putzing around, like, checking emails and everything. And I get the buzz on my phone and I pick it up. I'm like, man, that does look good.
It's
It
a good,
was such a fun thing
it's a good
to
thing.
hear you. Yeah. But like, that's what it's all about. And I was so happy for you because you talked about how much fun you had with your sister, how good the event was. And you were like, yeah, the food was kind of good, but it wasn't amazing. And we came back within a pound, which for everyone counting at home, that is like a gold star, platinum, whatever the highest rank you have. That's a win, people, if you come off it. But when you travel, you should be circling, like, if you're in New Orleans, you should have beignets. If you're coming up to Philly to visit me, you should have a cheesesteak. You have to have those foods that you enjoy, but also enjoy the social aspect of it. So yeah, it's just been so cool to watch everything that you've done and how you're growing, and your body comp has just gotten so ridiculously good, where I think it can struggle for some people because the scale has not necessarily, like, we're not sitting here going like, Abby has lost 25 pounds in 25 days. How has your mindset shifted between working towards body comp goals and the relationship with the scale?
Yeah, I think it's something I continue to work on. I think I knew and still know logically that my scale weight is simply a number and that it doesn't really mean anything else, but I did have to disassociate from the meaning of it a little bit. And again, that's more related to perfectionism than anything else. I think I had built up my 1 year surgery appointment with my surgery center. And I really thought that they would be like disappointed in me or have like some sort of feelings about my success or otherwise. Um, and of course, they didn't. They feel like I've been wildly successful because I have been, because I've done a lot of work.
Can you say that whole last line just one more time?
The I've been wildly successful part.
No, finish the sentence. Because you've done a lot of work.
Yeah. Yeah, because I've done a lot of work. That's right. And I think because of the BMI chart, frankly, that says I should weigh a certain amount, I sort of fixated on it had to be that number, but my life won't look any different at that number. And I feel great now. I feel great now. And I know I'm doing the work now. And if I don't ever get to that number, it will simply just be a number. And so I think it's kind of helped me separate the work I'm doing from what the scale says. And because I see results in other places, it's less stressful to me. I think if I was seeing no results anywhere, I would be stressed and I would be hyperfixating about the number. But because I can like see my shoulder muscle, or I switched some things on a prescribed workout and used the equipment that I had, and I did these landmine squats and was checking to see what the form looks like, and I saw so much muscle in my legs that I guess I know is there, but like actually seeing it working, I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is working the way that it's supposed to be working." And I care a lot more about that than I do about a scale weight that I see when I wake up in the morning.
I joke that I am very vain. I'd much rather look a certain way than be a certain weight. And a lot of that was my experience too, of when I was down at my lowest weight, I was skinny fat because of the amount of cardio I had. So like, I still had a belly. My shoulders looked like I was a prepubescent teen. I had like a hunch. And now it's like I'm about 15 pounds heavier than that number. I had to think like where it is because like I know I dance, but I'm about 15 pounds heavier than that. But like I can take my shirt off when we go on the senior trip and hop in the pool and not be worried. And I'm like, what's the value of that, of being around people and just being confident? And your form videos come in, and Lisa's always commenting of the body comp is coming in nicely, her form's getting better, she's lifting heavier each week, and it's just a testament of you do all the work. And I think that's important that you remember that. But anyone who's listening, Abby's had bariatric surgery. She does have who I think is a pretty good coach and a good team around her. But ultimately, it's Abby who is doing the work, and you're doing it every day. So, what does, I'm trying to think, I'm going to switch into that and I'm going to go into a little bit because we're getting close to time. We're going to go over the busy method. And because you listen to the podcast, do you kind of know what these questions are?
Yes, I do. I knew you were going to ask them, so I made myself think about it.
Oh my goodness. We have our like first real listener. I think the problem was all the dietitians that I had in season one. because I batch episodes, there was no format to get it. So now it's almost like a test when I bring clients on of, have you listened to the podcast? And it's like, I can always tell the ones who are like, of course I do. And then it's like, we get into here and it stumbles. So let's go through and have some fun. The B stands for building habits. What's one daily habit that's anchored your day now?
I think pre-planning my day. So in that morning when I'm looking at my calendar and I'm figuring out what I'm going to do, I'm also pre-logging everything I know or everything I think I'm going to eat that day. And it helps to see where I'm off and where I'm not off. And, there's certainly days where I don't do it, but then I'm like chasing macros the rest of that day. So I'm always thankful for when I've done it because I can easily see, here's what I was thinking. And as it turns out, that's 25 grams short of protein. So what are you going to do about that? And I can make that decision early before I've reached any decision fatigue, before I'm like overly hungry or overly tired.
And I think that's also played well because you have family members who sneak into the Mars factory over in Kansas and can get you bootleg M&Ms, which I'm entirely jealous of. But you can find ways to work that in when, you have a plan for the day. So I love that. The U is for understanding nutrition. What finally clicked about food and macros, or what was your biggest lesson there?
I thought I knew so much about macros and nutrition because I dieted my entire life. And I think I did know really good foundational things, but I'd never found the right thing that would make me feel satisfied and not like either like muscling my way through a goal or like giving up on the goal entirely and saying, I don't care, I'm going to eat whatever I want. And so, again, like it's a really simple thing, but fiber paired with protein is sort of like the magic, to feeling good and just letting food be like the thing you need to do because you need to eat. And where before I would let food kind of rule my life and rule the way I felt. And I was like constantly like, well, I'm going to eat this thing for lunch and then I'm going to have this thing for dinner. And, I was just like thinking about it so much. And I was pretty confident, like, oh, I must really suffer from food noise. I think what I suffered from was like being hungry because I didn't fuel myself very well. And so I would think a lot about food. So when I pair those things together, it just becomes food and not like a big emotional thing.
I don't want to knock anyone who has food noise, but I found one of the quickest, like, do you have food noise when they say yes? And I ask, like, are you mapping and being intentional with your food? The answer is no. It's usually like, oh, you're just hungry. Like, and it's because you're malnourished. But no, and I love that, like, you gave the answer I love to hear out of my clients. We have not done any weird fasting protocols. We have not eliminated carbs. We have not said like you need to eat fats at certain hours and carbs at certain days. It's match a protein with a fiber and just get really consistent with that. And I love that you do that and you live it. So let's get to the S, staying active. What's your go-to lift, movement, or favorite way to stay active?
Well, I love to walk every single day. My days go better if I start them with walking. So I'll do that every day, no matter what. I have a treadmill, so I do it inside if I need to, but I'm always going to show up for a walk. I love to train upper body though. I know a lot of women love lower body probably because it gets them like the aesthetic that they're looking for. But to me, I feel really strong when I lift upper body. And so I love shoulder work. I love back work. I love bicep work. So really anything like that, I look the most forward to my upper body day than any other lifts throughout the week.
Love that. And I think back is so underrated, especially with females. And the reason why is the more that you work your back, the more it's going to give you a V shape, which is actually part of the hourglass. I think too many women can kind of focus of, okay, hourglass figure means the round bottom, which is half of it. But by having more developed shoulders, it makes your waist look just as smaller as a wider bottom does. And it just is proof that like you can do it however way you love to do it. All right, the why is putting yourself first. How do you protect your time, your energy, and put yourself first every day?
This is just something I have to commit to doing. It's not my natural inclination. I guess I'm a people pleaser. Like I like to take care of people. I like to cook for other people. I like to make sure all their needs are met, their errands are run, their whatever needs to be done. And I'm not good at doing it for myself. And so I guess I would have thought I would have gotten better, but I've been going on like 5 years at this point of just deciding to prioritize myself. And it is not natural yet. Like I still have to fight to do it because it's so easy for me to go back into the place of like, oh, so and so needs this and this and this. Therefore, I'm not going to do anything I need to do because someone else has a need. And so it's kind of one of those early morning check-in things. I just figure out I have to do it. Where am I going to do it? I know I'm better for doing it. I'm better for the people that love me, and that I love for doing it. So I just it's just like brushing my teeth. Like I have, it's a thing I have to do.
I think that's so important because so many people think like, "Oh, how are you motivated every day?" And it's like, "No, I'm not even motivated and I kind of get paid to be in shape." So that definitely plays a bit of it, but it shows how hard we work with it. So, final one, the extra sprinkle, healthy sources of dopamine. What's something you do now that brings you joy without food?
Well, right now it's summertime and I sort of am like a love the sunshine sort of person. I drive a Ford Bronco and I have realized that I have the doors off and the top off, everything off my Bronco right now. And I've realized how much of a like mood shifter driving that car is, which seems like a silly thing. So there's a big lake not too far from me. I'll drive out to the lake, or I'll drive to, I live in the country, so we'll just like drive to town, the town that I work in. We'll drive to town and get like late night sodas or something like that. Like little treat things that end up feeling really special just because I like being outside and I like spending my time that way. And if I've had like a hard day and a stressful day maybe before, I would have just like vegged on the couch. I really like spending my time that way.
Yeah, I mean, that's an awesome car to do it in. Having the top down in the good weather is always a plus. And I'm not jealous at all as someone who drives like a Dodge Grand minivan. So it's a beautiful way to do it. So, as we finish up our episode and wrap it up, if there's a mom or a professional who's out there who says, like, my schedule is just too full to make it work in busy bariatrics, what would you tell them?
I mean, I think being accountable to your schedule, a lot can be done in little pockets of time. You just have to do it. So if I have a meeting that's scheduled from 11 to 12, I used to, if a meeting would get out early, I would just let myself get like sucked into my inbox and like worry about the next meeting and just like stay super in work mode. And I realized at some point that it didn't make me less of a productive person or less of an employee to say, you know what, I'm going to go walk down the hallway in this like 15 minutes that the meeting got out. And so I can better meet my step goals. I feel better because I got outside and saw the sun for the first time in the day, or just like got away from my desk. And so I think making your minutes count, but that takes you deciding that that's what you're going to do. Because you could just look at your calendar and think, I simply cannot, every minute is accounted for. And I could have told myself that every minute was accounted for, and it like let me off the hook from using the little pockets of time that I have. And I have to be stringent with my time. And then I have to say no to things that don't give back to me. And so I have said no to some committees that in the past I would have said yes to because it means it meets over the lunch, which means I'm not ever going to be able to walk or whatever. And so I've just become, I think, more judicious with my time to make sure that I fit, because before I only made sure that like work or other people fit. And that's kind of a sad life to live. So I just had to figure out where I fit and decide that I was enough to fit.
I 100% do. And I think one thing that you and me both have agreed on is if left to our own devices, we do enjoy our jobs and we like to work and we like to complete. I'm doing, as of this recording, I'm just putting 3 tasks on my calendar each day. These are the 3 like odds and ends jobs or things I'm going to do to move busy bariatrics forward. And when those 3 are done, I'm shutting the laptop and I'm just being present with either my family or my fitness. And I'm getting more done amazingly because it does hold me accountable each day, but it also allows me to show up. And I'm so glad it's going well for you. Final question. If you could go back to post op Abby in her first month, what would you tell her?
I honestly think the thing I would say is to not like try to struggle alone for so long. I had a lot of success really, really quickly. And then when that success stopped, I sort of was left wondering what to do. And my surgery center is wonderful and supportive, and I'm always going to be thankful for what they did for me, but they weren't super helpful for a high achiever like me. They're really helpful, I think, for people who are struggling a lot. And I needed like tweaks, not overhauls. And I think they were like, you're doing it, just keep doing it. And that wasn't actually that helpful to me. And so I spent several months feeling really conflicted about what I was supposed to be doing. And I was lifting not every day, but I was lifting every single week. And I was hitting a step goal and I was eating the foods I was supposed to be eating. And I was fairly confident I was hitting the right macros ish that I needed to be. And I still wasn't seeing results. And so I let myself feel stuck. And so really, I would just go back and encourage myself to ask for help sooner. I was never like opposed to asking for help, but I think I just told myself I shouldn't need it because I had just been through this major surgery. But no one is teaching you what you're supposed. They tell you like you got to hit this protein and this water goal, and you should probably move your body. I was doing all those things, and so I didn't know, I think, to ask for more than that. And so I wish I just would have not struggled for those couple of months. I just wish I would have done it sooner.
Our stories are so similar of I really do love my surgical center. And the problem is because by every standard they have, I'm a success. Like they're like, look, you have like an 88. That's really good. I'm like, but I'm working really hard and I want the A. How do I get to that next level? And they were like, well, you're scoring an 88. That's like really good and better than most. And I think when we hire coaches, part of it is I always go with like boulders, rocks, and pebbles. Like get the big boulders out of the way, which you had already cleared on your path. The next part is like, how do we, dodge the rocks thrown at us of schedules, weekends away, holidays, and we did that together. But the real coaching comes like in kind of going back to the exact opposite of the granular of if we're looking at every, grain of sand on the beach, well, when they get in their shoes, how do we get the grains of sand out of our shoes or the pebbles out of our shoe that are annoying, but they're not so annoying that it's ruining us? It's just enough of agitation. And you're doing that. So Abby, I want to thank you so much for coming on. I'm so proud of your success. I'm so happy to see where we're going with all this. And I just want to thank you because with your busy schedule, this is where I had to make sure we made some time so that we could get this. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, gang, if you're listening to this and thinking, that's me, that's my schedule, that's my excuse, then it's time to get out of your own way. DM me the word schedule or go to busybariatrics.com and go apply right on the site. And if this one hit, that means it's time to stop collecting awareness and start applying action. Don't just nod along. Go prove to yourself that you're coachable, consistent, and capable. Leave me a comment on Spotify about what you're going to do now that you've heard this episode. And as always, keep getting busy.